Hi friends, Jeremy, the Zoo Nerd here. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the different kingdoms of living organisms. When science first started looking at the other life on Earth, they started to consider everything animals. And then they realized there were a lot of other things that were alive just besides animals. Today those are grouped into 6 different groups called kingdoms. And I'll talk a little bit about each of them today. The first is actually the oldest, but the most recently discovered. And that's kind of one thing I love about science is we're continuing to learn things. And in the 1980s, they've discovered this first group. And it's called Archaebacteria. Now, Archaebacteria are pretty specialized. They live in very extreme environments. Places like volcanic vents under the ocean, or very hot geothermal springs like in Yellowstone. They also live in some really salty lakes or bodies of water, like the Dead Sea or the Great Salt Lake. Those are the Archaebacteria. The second group is something called Eubacteria. These are going to be most of the bacteria that we commonly know throughout the earth. They're fairly common. We know quite a bit about them. Some of them are a lot of parasites, such as streptococci, which causes strep throat. But they also can be some great things that help produce many vitamins, antibiotics, and yogurt. That's the Eubacteria. The third kingdom are the fungi, and these are going to include things like mushrooms, molds, mildews, and yeast. So these guys, these are the fungi, and fungi are multi-celled organisms, and early science classified mushrooms as plants, but then realized they don't make their own food like plants do. So those are the fungi. The fourth group is called Protozoa, and these are mostly single-celled organisms, but are more complex than the single-celled bacteria. Protozoa kingdom includes things like algae and slime molds, and any of the other microscopic organisms that don't fall into the bacterial, fungi, plant, or animal kingdoms. They're generally lumped together in the Protozoa. I live here in California, and we have one of the biggest protozoa living right off our coast, and that's a type of seaweed called giant kelp. And giant kelp's an amazing organism. It's also one of the fastest growing organisms on the earth. It can grow about 18 inches a day. Pretty fascinating stuff, giant kelp. That's the big seaweed that lives out there off our coastline. But enough about protozoa. Let's talk about the next group. Our next group's right here behind me. These are the plants. And the plant kingdom encompasses all flowering plants, mosses, and ferns. Plants are multi-celled, complex organisms, and are considered something called autotrophic. And what that means is that they can make their own food. It's pretty cool. They use something called photosynthesis to do this. That means they take energy from the sun, and they can create their own food with it. And the plant kingdom is thought to be the second largest of all kingdoms of living organisms, with about 25,000 known species. And we have to say known species, well, we're still learning. Science changes all the time as we learn additional things and discover new organisms. So our final group is the animals, and that's what I'm mostly going to talk about on this channel, is the animal kingdom. So it's made up of complex multi-celled organisms, ranging from the simple things like sea sponges, all the way up to the biggest land animal, the elephant, and including our biggest animal on Earth that ever has or ever will be, the blue whale. And the blue whale is by far the heaviest animal that ever lived. Some dinosaurs and actually some sea jellies are a little bit longer, but the blue whale outweighed them all. But animals are known as heterotrophs. That means, unlike plants, they don't make their own food. They have to get their own food. And that's a big difference. So if it eats other things, that's usually an animal. That's one of the big classifications. And the animal kingdom is the world's largest kingdom with over 1 million known species. But like I said, we're always discovering and learning new things, and new species of animals are identified every year. So I hope you've learned a little bit. I hope you've had some fun. And at the end of each video, I'm going to give a little shout out to a website that can give you more information. And today's is a website called sciencing.com. It's a pretty good information website that has a lot of facts about a lot of different things, especially if you're looking for other science content that's not going to be animal related. Check it out, sciencing.com. Hope you've had fun. Hang in there. Talk to you later. Enjoy.